Why play Game Dev Tycoon? Well, my name is VanguardOfValor, and I'm going to help you answer that one for yourself. The short answer to why you should play Game Dev Tycoon is that this recently updated for Steam title features the same interesting simulator gameplay of attempting to create hit games and expand your development company as it previously did, but is now much easier to understand and excel at. To really know if Game Dev Tycoon is for you, though, we'll need to look at it in a little more detail. Game Dev Tycoon was developed by Greenheart Games and released in April of 2013. The game has just recently made it through the Steam greenlight process to be featured on the distribution service, and Game Dev Tycoon is Greenheart Games' first and only game so far, based on their love of the game Game Dev Story by Kairosoft. One wonderful little tidbit about the game is that when it was released, the developers released a pirated copy of the game themselves, which played entirely like the normal game, except that at a certain point, any games you created in-game would get hit so hard by piracy that it would become impossible to proceed. They then proceeded to call out those who posted in the forums about these problems, as they could only have pirated the game themselves. That lovely little tidbit aside though, let's look more closely at Game Dev Tycoon itself. Game Dev Tycoon is, simply put, a simulator of the game development process. You start off as a fledgling developer in your garage with little experience and few resources. Making a game requires you to decide on some of its core elements, such as platform, genre, and topic. And as development progresses, you can choose to focus your development time on the aspects of the game which are likely to be the most important, such as dialogues for an RPG or sound for a rhythm game, in order to use your time as effectively as possible. If you manage to make money, you can gradually move to nicer and nicer locales, hire on more developers to make better games, create custom engines, even custom consoles, and eventually attempt to become a dominant part of the video game industry. As time rolls on, new consoles are released with names suspiciously close to those you may recognize, and the industry moves forward in a way similar to what can be seen around us. As a simulator, the game experience is not particularly demanding, but things can get quite tense when you're waiting on the reviews for a game you just made for a big publisher who will be penalizing you if your game gets less than a score of 8. In its original state, I found Game Dev Tycoon to be a predominantly frustrating experience. With little to no feedback on what you should have done to make your games better, most of my attempts would start strong and then fade into obscurity as I was unable to maintain any reasonable level of success. However, the recent updates to the game that came along with the Steam release have, in my opinion, made the game much more enjoyable. After each game you make is released, you can now generate a report about the decisions you made during the game's creation, such as whether or not the game's genre is a good match for the console you chose, or if it's a good idea to focus more on world design, which makes it much easier to stop yourself from making the same mistakes multiple times, and helps you to repeat your successes. Not only that, but you can choose to have these discoveries carry over from game to game, meaning that subsequent attempts can go much better. The updated version also includes a variety of other nice changes which help improve the entire experience. In its current state, Game Dev Tycoon is a lot easier to recommend. Given the largely static nature of the game, the visual side of things are not particularly exceptional, but there is enough detail in the environments and animation in the characters to keep things from being too bland. The game's audio is similarly average, with some decent music and sounds, but nothing particularly stunning. The two things which should be remembered with regards to Game Dev Tycoon are as follows. Firstly, the game is a simulator and not an action-adventure experience. Those looking for excitement may want to look elsewhere, as the game is not particularly thrilling. Secondly, if at first you don't succeed, don't hesitate to experiment with things you may have avoided previously, such as potentially publishing deals or contract work, as you may find they have their specific uses. Repeating the same mistakes is the one sure way to guarantee your difficulties in moving forwards. If Game Dev Tycoon does appeal to you, the game costs $10, €9 or £7 on Steam, and anyone who bought it before the Steam release should have received a key from Greenheart allowing access to the Steam version free of charge. So, why play Game Dev Tycoon? Hopefully by now you have the information you need to answer that question for yourself. This has been VanguardOfValor. Thank you very much for watching, and please remember to leave a comment letting me know what you liked or disliked about the video. Until next time, bye-bye.